The Banking Scene Director's Cut goes behind the scenes, sharing stories and insights to help you build the bank of tomorrow.
Welcome to this episode of the Banking Scene Director's Cut, where we are going to be talking today all about agentic AI in banking. And with me today, I have Sára Hanniker, who is Head of AI Solutions and Research. And I've got Josef Dvořák, who is Director of Artificial Intelligence, both of them at Finshape. Welcome to the show, Sára and Josef.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'm going to dive straight in, as is my way. In the interest of time, I dive straight into the questions. And what I want to know is a lot of banks at the moment have got Gen AI pilots. Over the last couple of years, it's all been about generative AI. But to you, as industry, as technology providers, what do you think are the clearest signals that a bank is genuinely moving towards agentic as opposed to just having co-pilots on top of existing processes? Who wants to go first there?
Sára, do you want to go first?
Okay, so let me mention an example. When you prepare for this podcast and you use AI to summarize my LinkedIn profile, then you are using a tool, AI, which is helpful, but it's not transformation, right? This is not agentic. But if you set up a workflow and split it into multiple tasks, for example, search on LinkedIn, search for the company, summarize, retrieve information, prepare the questions, and you are using as a chain of agents, then you are already agentic. So it means that you delegate tasks and also decisions to the AI, and then you are already using an agentic workflow. This is a very simple example, but if we see these signs, then we can say that yes, the bank is heading towards agentic AI.
So even though it's a very simple example, you mentioned some things in there which immediately get me, my ears pricking up, because you said you delegate things to the AI, right? So by implication, what changes first in a bank? Is it the process design in order to get the workflow done? Is it the management mindset where you're now having to delegate things? Is it governance? Is it what changes first to make that shift to agentic AI?
So without the management mindset, I believe you cannot have an impact. But then you need to change the processes. This is our experience as well, right? We are using AI to automate our daily workflows, but without redesigning the processes, without redesigning the knowledge base, the inputs for the AI, without having analysts who work on the new workflows and accepting the new workflows, we cannot go anywhere. So is not the bottleneck. We need to redesign the processing, and we have the people, and they have to change their mindset, and then it can work.
So I'm curious, Josef, I'm going to throw this one at you because part of your role is delivery, right? Where do you see banks most often fooling themselves about their level of maturity?
Not say fooling themselves, I think we all kind of play this role, the game, that we're all watching the trend, and we are not only bystanders, but we are actively pushing it forward. So if you look at LinkedIn, you might have an impression that, everybody has already everything in production and like world is shiny and everything. But the reality is totally different. At least from what I saw, like anybody who tried to do anything with AI in real life understands that even though in past few months it improved significantly and it's like very nice what it can do now, still to get it to the stage that you can scale whatever solution up and have it in production to your customers it's a totally different game. Yeah, it takes time. So I think the most overhyped thing about AI are the timelines, like the experience, the expectations of the timelines. So if for, I don't know, your bank, it took like 7 years to introduce Teams, Microsoft Teams, and you are at like 70% of adoption, then probably AI won't happen overnight as well. Yeah, it's like a long-term process. So, but I think like mostly people know it. It's just this like marketing buzz around that creates this wrong impression. So it's going to be a long journey, but the changes will be like huge. And we see it in our company as well. And as you asked before, I agree with Sára. Like the first step is you need to enable it in your company. And many times it's really the most, let's say, down to earth things that prevent people from doing this. For example, if your role as a manager of something and all of your benefits and everything is tied to number of your employees, then what's your motivation to cut them by 30%? Because you would get worse parking spot, worse car. Nobody wants that. And this is something that people don't tell you. Like the first time you ask them about innovation, they say, "Oh yeah, sure, innovation, all for that." But then it like, it's slow and it's problematic, and you are like, why these people tell me something and like it doesn't, what's the situation? And then after few months you understand that there's this like anti-innovation rule basically in the company, and there's many obstacles like that. So that's thing number one. And thing number two is about people. Like, I don't know what's your experience, but for example, here and where I saw, like from those people who go there first and pioneer and like try to do things differently and like use these agents for everything suddenly and are suddenly so more productive and rant about it all the time and show it to others and inspire them. And this is how it spreads. Yeah, like the big campaigns of like, okay, let's do the process redesigns and stuff like that. Yes, can be done, important, but this is the harder way.
So you mentioned quite a few different bottlenecks and things taking time. So Sára, in your experience, what slows down AI adoption in banks more than anything else, apart from the anti-innovation pattern that Josef has already mentioned? And you've already brought up weak data foundations and things like that. But is there something else? Is there anything around maybe the complexity around who gets to decide whether or not the decisions are made about the AI acting on their behalf? Do they get stuck between product, risk, compliance? Where's the biggest bottleneck for you?
We know about the old-fashioned problems of the banks, lack of data integration, no real-time data access, or their organizational chart, working in silos. These are all real problems which can be solved, but new questions arise when we talk about AI. So how do we delegate decisions? Who is responsible for decisions? Who is accountable for the AI decisions? And how do we build trust towards an agentic systems? And these questions have not been answered yet. And we also struggle to convince banks to go ahead. And we try to convince them not to expect a perfect system at the beginning. And it may not be never ever perfect.
Maybe it will be also related to your question before, like thing that like attempts to change the whole complexity and transform it to something new step by step is causing the most delays and everything, because like they have already been there. Like anything you wanted to change, improve, it is all facing the same complexity, and you cannot basically with AI overcome it. So where I think banks a little bit lie to themselves is that they are going to do it this way and do it for some reason faster. That's not going to happen. What I think they should try is do it in parallel. Because, quite frankly, we have decided this as well internally. Yeah? We are developing AI delivery products, and we've tried for some time to do it on the go for the running projects and all sorts of that stuff. But we were enormously slow because like you are basically, you are doing it one way, people are used to it, and you are trying it more to be more efficient. So you are adjusting everything to the people, and basically you are just slapping AI technology on the processes that are designed for the people and for the time that there was no AI. So then we have decided not to go there because people don't like it. They don't like the change, and it's like frustrating for everybody. So we've decided, okay, let's go for the end game, and let's say what the end game is. And if the end game is I do this task or this process or this job for my customer, and I do it just with 30% of effort, and I do it semi-automatically, let's do it in parallel. We are not canceling anything. Let's in parallel. And once we get there, then we will test it out. And if it works better than current ways, then we will switch to it. And the people who are there will either join or go do something else.
So I'm glad that you brought up that a lot of the work previously was all around efficiency. Where do you think AI, specifically agentic AI, will reshape customer relationships in the future, not just efficiency? Do you think it's going to materially change the customer relationship over the next couple of years?
Yeah, 100%. You see sparks of it now, but the adoption is really low, but it's going to change. And now with the coming of agents into the hands of normal people, before it was just like, I asked my ChatGPT about the best savings account, it went out there, researched, proposed, and I went to the bank to purchase it, whatever. Now, when you will have agent, then it will probably autonomously do this for you, optimize everything, and if there will be any way how to do it, it will do it for you. And now the question is where you as a bank will be and how you retain the relationship with the customer. If everything will be done by some proactive agent that everybody will want, once people will understand what it can do, and anybody I show my agents to wants them as well, and people will have it. It's just a matter of time that OpenAI and others introduce it, what it means for the banks.
So on the topic of perfect systems, actually, as the foundational models improve, is there a competitive advantage for banks in model choice, or does the competitive advantage move towards orchestration, evaluation, workflow design, and things like that? Because at the moment, there's lots of choice around there. Where could they potentially get competitive advantage?
Yeah. Model choice is not a question anymore. Of course,
Doesn't
model
make it.
selection matters because they have different costs, different capabilities, but the models are good enough. So it's not about model choice. It is about how you build up your agentic system and how you orchestrate the agents. The agents still remain specialized. They are accountable for a specific domain, and it is about how you orchestrate those agents so that if we talk, for example, about a customer's facing application, that the journey is seamless and is not broken. And basically, this orchestration level is something that is against the old organizational chart, right? The orchestrator is responsible for the seamless customer journey.
And I was about to bring up exactly that, because I was going to say, you're talking about agents and domains, but typically banking journeys are broken into functions across the banks, and most banks are still organized around channels or products and functions. So where do you see the biggest mismatch between how the banks are structured today and how customers actually need help, which runs across everything?
Yes. Customers expect seamless customer journeys, and the banks are not organized in a way that they are responsible for end-to-end customers' journeys. If customer changes the topic, changes the intent, then the journey breaks. If I go to a branch, then I need to talk to someone else if I if I ask questions about mortgages, but then I need to turn to someone else if I ask questions about my investment, and to someone else if I speak about my current accounts, right?
Yes.
So, but in agentic systems, if you build agentic systems, then you have to be responsible for the whole customer journey across those domains. So I believe that first banks need to take care about those customer journeys, build those teams, and then change their organization gradually. So you cannot change an organization from zero. You need to experiment with it and gradually change it.
So, Josef, having heard what Sára's just said around that, it sounds like banks need to rethink their operating model around customer intent rather than rather than product lines. Is this something that you're experiencing as a bit of friction when it comes to deployment within banks across industry? Not asking you to name any banks as examples, but is this a general thing that you're starting to see and having to force?
I would say that this is a long term or long time existing problem, but as it's a good habit of AI, it just amplifies your problems whenever whenever you use your AI on anything, when it's like searching for information, giving advice on a front line, something like that, you very quickly understand that you have problems in your data. Once you start to create some end customer solutions, you will very quickly find out the friction between these silos. So exactly what Sára mentioned, I think this is the way forward, as we discussed before, like creating these agent ops, or however we call it, teams that are not only technical, but also like business oriented, to design these journeys, how they should look like, how they should work, so that the customers enjoy it works for them, and design agents and agentic systems on these journeys, not the old ones, because they are many times broken. And we have done a lot of projects mapping these, and I can come up with one example where we were mapping a journey because the bank had a big churn in a certain segment, and they didn't know why, so we went there and mapped the journey like step by step. And what's always very useful is to see the data. Like, for example, I don't know, this was the case when if the customer didn't pay at a certain time, what happens then? Yeah, he receives some notification that he didn't pay. Okay, can you show me the notification? Oh yes, so we can ask, you run around the bank, get it out, and then you read it. And it was almost like, it was very rude. Yeah, there was almost like threatening with suing the poor guy that didn't send, I don't know, 200 euros on that day. And this was the first notification. And they were like, oh, we have this, okay. And how many people gets it? And then you figure out 10,000 people every month. Like, oh, that's a problem. Yeah, we need to somehow do something about it. And like the complexity in the banks is huge. So these things happen. And this happens when you go like the silo by silo. But if you go end to end, you suddenly discover these problems and you need to fix them so that it works.
It exposes them. So in your mind, which cross-functional journeys are the best suited to early agentic redesign? Is there a specific area like onboarding, lending, collections, or something like that, where you've gone, if a bank goes, we want to look at a low-hanging fruit, early agentic redesign? Is there a specific cross-functional journey where you'll go, our recommendation is to start with this area in our experience, or is it too early in the agentic conversations to be able to identify something like that?
I would suggest to starting with the everyday interaction, and not these big events, because people need bank when they need it. They don't care the rest of the time. Bank should focus on being there and providing some value. And that the most frequent interaction is through their mobile device. We know it from the statistics, and banks are optimizing for like increasing the engagement, going there. Yeah, that's nice. But if the only thing you tell the person is like, you have pre-approved loan for 1 million Czech crowns or whatever, and the person says, I don't care, I don't want to get loan. Yeah, So let's make sure that you are relevant in these everyday interactions. And agentic teams, basically, or agentic systems are there to help you with that. Like give every customer private banker. It was not possible before, now it is. So you should do that.
Sára, in doing all of this, how do you get these agentic systems working across all of the silos without governance becoming a nightmare? Because we've spoken about we have to reorganize, but at the moment you've got lots of governance in the way. Do you ever trip up on the governance question?
Governance, extremely important. But again, governance is easier if you have these specialized agents, which are responsible for specialized domains, because then you know what is the underlying data the agents work with, and you are responsible for that, and you are responsible for the capabilities. So I think banks should set the governance standards, the rules, which are applicable for all agents. And then it is easier to rule. This is how I would that. So not special governance for each and every domain, each and every agentic workflow, but general guidelines and safety standards which are applicable for all. For example, how we trace what the agents do is quite general. How that data quality really matters. This is a general rule. Also, how we observe, how we monitor, how we evaluate AI answers. This is also a general. And the same technology can be used based on the same standards. And also that we need to comply with GDPR, with the European AI Act. These are general rules, and should be applicable to all AI applications within the organization.
I did have a bit of an ulterior motive for asking that question, because Finshape has long worked in digital banking and specifically around personalization. Now, how does agentic AI change the sort of influence and trust that the customers have in banking, especially when the agentic system could potentially, through self-learning, end up doing recommendations and taking actions if you don't put those guardrails around? Where does that land? What's the line between commercial-based nudging and good financial guidance, that kind of a thing?
Yes. First of all, the customer needs to feel that we understand the customer's financial. That's the foundation. And then the question is what we can do with that knowledge. And we really need to balance between financial guidance and nudging. So our aim is to increase financial literacy, to engage customers, to build trust. At the same time, we are integrated with CRM systems so that the bank can sell its products and increase the revenue in that direct way as well. And we really need to balance what we do when we step in with the product recommendations, loyalty offers, insurance products, because this is really the art of balancing, because it really ruins the trust and the confidence of the customers, the reliability of the system, if we step in too early with those recommendations.
And yes,
but we, as an AI system, we can only provide guidance and not decisions.
Yes.
We cannot act on behalf of the customer. We are not autonomous, and we don't want to have a huge impact on the financial behavior of the customer. This is currently out of scope. We integrate with systems who have the complete view of the customers, right? CRM systems, and then we can read the data from the CRM systems, but we don't
And Josef, this was something that we had discussed in Luxembourg when you were on my panel recently there about that line. And I'd actually called it creepy and cool. But if we look forward, where do you think the banks will end up placing more focus on humans in this agentic world? Are there areas where human roles will become more important in banking, even given the rise of agentic AI? Because we keep on focusing on how agentic AI is going to do more and more and more. But are there human roles that are actually going to become even more important because of agentic AI?
I think so. I think AI will bring us humans to more human stuff. So you imagine you're coming now to a bank branch and there is the banker waiting for you. And most of the time of your interaction, he or she is just looking into the computer, putting there somewhere something, and he's not paying attention. He's not focusing on yourself, and you might want to tell the story, and you just want somebody to listen, and they are really not listening, because they have a lot of things they need to do. Otherwise, nothing gets done. Yeah, it makes sense. So this is the opportunity for us humans to get rid of this stuff that is ridiculous. The need doesn't need to be there anymore, and we just can focus on really the relationship. Whatever, like sales 101, it's all about the relationship, yes, but there's so much other stuff that you need to take care of that there is not enough time to focus on really that. The AI will provide it, yeah. And it's also about like preparation, yeah. So knowing the customer, these people, they will have so much time. What they will do exactly this. They will try to understand better the customer, prepare, think about them, discuss with some AI system, and bring up better solutions, more outside of the box solutions that they will then introduce to a human, and they will appreciate that somebody thinks about them and provide them something extraordinary. Yeah, that's a bigger quality of the service. So the role of humans is still there, in my view. You just need to relieve them from the computer stuff.
So potentially AI could help humans become more human.
Yes. As ridiculous as it sounds.
So I'm going to ask you both one final question, and I'm going to pose it to both of you to see whether or not you have different or opposing views. I want to know if you can think of one belief about agentic AI in banking that the industry holds today that you think will age badly. So in other words, that's not going to last long. Some core belief that bankers may feel today about agentic AI that you think, look, in a very short space of time, that's not going to so. Nothing? Do you think that everything that they think about agentic AI now will come true? Or do you think some of the things that they're thinking, you're going, no?
I think if they think agentic AI is only about cost reduction, I think it's not true. I also think it's not true that they need to get the AI perfect before we let it do anything. I think this is also a false belief.
And also, it will replace us. I don't think it's true. It will not replace people. It will replace tasks. Yeah. So people are not writing in these big book ledgers anymore because we have systems. So in the future, people will just not write on these funny things with these buttons and screens anymore, because it might feel ridiculous in a few years. But I'm pretty sure they will do different stuff as we always did. So I think it will play out differently, and yeah, that's the main point.
Thank you very much for openly sharing your thoughts and insights today. I could carry on much longer, but I know that you both actually have real jobs to get back to. So thank you for coming on the show. And Sarah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time at the banking scene Amsterdam. And Josef, maybe you'll come and join her to support her in the audience. I don't know.
Yes,
But we
looking
look forward
forward.
to our paths crossing again soon. Thank you again.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much.